one.
Must say that I had a very nice date yesterday evening. I do hope it's from the gentleman that we're about to speak to, but I've had a nice offering of dates recently. But I'll tell you why it was nice last night. A very good piece of nougat in the middle. It's all the rage this time of the year, isn't it? Is what you put in your dates when they arrive in the extraordinary boxes of offerings, because dates are such a large part, not just of Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan, when they really come into their fore as a gift from household to household, but as a fundamental foodstuff of the region. Well, you don't need me to tell you that. We can get it from the man we're about to speak to, Agthia Group. They've announced a 57% increase in Q1 2020 earnings per share and a 17% increase in Q1 2021 results. So extraordinary results for them, and certainly something that we'd like to dive into as we look at the finance of food with none other than the Chief Executive Officer of Agthia Group, Alan Smith, who joins us not just live on the line, but live on Microsoft Teams this morning. Alan, good morning to you.
Morning, Tom. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're really good, thanks. Listen, Agthia, as a number of our listeners and viewers will know, best known for the makers and suppliers of Alain water. But these quarterly financial results are just out for you, with both revenue and profit rising. On the surface, strong set of Q1 numbers for you. As I mentioned just there, revenue up 17, profit up 57. What's the story behind the data to date?
So I think, Tom, we're pretty happy with the results for Q1. Obviously, we'd mentioned previously that, lapping a pre-COVID quarter last year, there would be some headwinds in that regard. But obviously, during the quarter, we consolidated two new businesses, one of which you touched on, which is the Alfoa Dates business. And secondly, we consolidated from the end of January our Al Faisal acquisition in Kuwait. We've also been busy. We've announced another couple of acquisitions that will consolidate between quarter two and quarter three. So overall, I think the Alfoa business added around 137 million to the top line, helped with the profitability. Obviously, dates is quite seasonal, as you were alluding to in the intro. So typically strong in Q1 and Q4. But overall, I think the way we think is the story underlying the numbers is also pretty positive from our perspective.
Let's dive into dates if we can, Alan, because obviously, hugely significant at this time of year, hugely significant to this region as well. You've mentioned there the purchase, the acquisition of Alfoa last year, I reckon for nearly about 500 million dirhams or thereabouts. It was already given you a sales boost of 137 million dirhams in the first quarter alone, as mentioned. Can you explain to me, or rather to viewers and listeners, the economics of dates from farm or from tree to table?
Interesting question. So, look, dates as a business is quite interesting. The reason we were more than excited to get into this category is we see it as a superfood. We think it's got an incredible potential, as you say. It's not just the use in Ramadan or during the religious seasons, but it's also when you think about a lot of international companies are looking at natural replacements for processed sugar within their products. So dates as an ingredient, dates in date bars or snack bars, dates, as you were again mentioning, chocolate enrobed dates with ingredients. So we see it very much as a snacking type of business versus just a pure consumption, a date to put in your mouth, shall we say.
From dates, we turn our attention to water, again, something that Agthia is all too aware of. I mean, I mentioned Alain and the Alain brand, which is synonymous with this region and everybody knows it, which, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, saw little or no growth year on year. But to be honest, water, of course, is a commodity business as we read it. From the grab-and-go bottle in a petrol station whenever you're stopping off to your essential 5-gallon bottles for office, home or otherwise in the water cooler. Does the strategy for water change?
Look, I think COVID has changed the strategy for manufacturing companies generally. I think if you look at the way channels performed last year, and Agthia is the number one number one brand here in the UAE, with Al Ain. Food service struggled last year because obviously tourism and restaurants being closed at various times. Home delivery actually increased quite significantly. E-commerce increased quite significantly. And if you look at our Q1 results, they've continued to perform well. Food service is slowly coming back, still obviously below 2019 levels, but encouraging signs so far. And I think internationally, we've made good progress with our water business in Kuwait, in Saudi, in Oman. So overall, a bit of a mixed story. But as we progress through the year, I guess we're cautiously optimistic about the fact that quarter two will be measured against what was a hard-hit COVID quarter last year.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the elephant in the room. That's going to be my next question about all things COVID. But you pretty much answered that question. But just to sort of dive into that a little bit deeper, because you mentioned there that it is impacting business, and it has impacted business since the beginning of 2021, since what we saw in 2020. You talked there about consumer demand, but has there also been a challenge to supply chain, to production, to distribution? Have they been affected at all?
I think what you're starting to see in the supply chain, so one of the biggest challenges right now is global freight rates have been increasing, and that's really due to demand on the sea. So, we're seeing some input costs going up in that regard. I think overall last year, Agthia were very proactive in terms of reacting to some of the challenges in the supply chain. We increased our coverage of materials. We increased our number of trucks to be able to deliver to consumers. And what we're also, we diverted some of our assets, for example, this year from office delivery more into home delivery to make sure, again, that we use the assets that we have to the best, to maximize the returns for the business.
Last time you were on the Business Breakfast, I think it was back in March of this year, but you were speaking to Richard and you said that Agthia was going through a period of, I think you said transformational change. Change is good, but change is never easy. I mean, you've been in the job, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but almost a year now. Biggest challenge to date?
Look, I think as we look at the business, say we talk about transformational change. During quarter one, we announced, or during April, we announced our 2025 strategy. And that's really built on three pillars: growth, efficiency, and capability. So we want to grow inorganically. We want to grow regionally. In terms of efficiency, obviously, we recognize in the current climate, we've got to we've got to have costs in the system that help the boat to go faster, shall we say. And then the last thing is around capability. We need the best people. We need the right culture, and we need the right skills in the business. So that's really, what we're focused on moving forward. I think when I think about the challenges, one of my big passions is we've announced 4 acquisitions. As we bring those businesses in, we've also announced a transformation and integration office to make sure we do it well. These are good businesses, and the thing that I want to make sure we do is continue their growth journey. So 1 + 1 needs to equal more than 2, should we say? So that's what we're focused on as we move forward, and I'd say that's the thing that we're trying to drive most efficiently in the business, is making sure we deliver on the business plans that justified the acquisitions in the first place.
Alan, always good to catch up with you. Really appreciate you getting up nice and early during Ramadan to speak to us. I'll let you get on to have your Alfoa date smoothie for breakfast. I'm sure that's on the menu. Alan Smith is the Chief Executive Officer of Agthia Group, and we appreciate him joining us to run through those numbers.